Hey, what's going on, everybody? I wanted to make a quick video. Hopefully, I'm not too long. Me and these thick glasses, right? But as you get older, your vision changes. But anyhow, I want to make a quick video. Just talk about when I made a video, because I get some people that comment, and once again I try to stress that I don't really try to make review videos on gear, because some people will put a review video, buy a piece of gear and give their opinions on it. I'm not against that, or I'm not for that. The only reason why I don't do it is because unless I'm specifically getting paid to do that, even though I've done my opinions on a company, like I made a video way back as Bands Any Good, or I did a review. I did my thoughts on my Altron 73 preamps, but I just don't really try not to do that. If you ever watch that video, I just tell you that if I bought one and I liked it, and you see another one, that ought to tell you that my opinion, that I'm just not gonna keep buying stuff that I don't like. So if I bought one and if you see another one, I like them, no matter what it is. So with that being said, without being too long, I was watching some videos that popped up, and it's always giving someone's opinion on what they think is the best. And sometimes that's just biased opinion, but then sometimes that's by design. Especially if you see somewhere they got it narrowed down to the top 5 as an example. That's by design. Reason being, most of the time, some of these people that make their top 5 or whatever is because, if you ever wonder how some people get gear, and they'll sit there and say, well, this company sent me a piece of gear for me to review. You know, I'm in the YouTube business, I guess, but I'm not making any money off of it. But no one's sending me gear. So until people start sending me gear to do a review, that's probably not going to happen. Now, if they send me a piece of gear to do a review, now I have done a video on my thoughts on my interface. And what was nice about it, because I did a video and I did an interview video, or my thoughts videos on the Antelope, they did send me some free plugins, which was really great for that. So it does help some companies when you do that. And my thoughts on it I wasn't getting paid by Antelope. It's just really that good of an interface, in my opinion. For me using it, I love the way that it sounds and how it works. But not everyone wants an Antelope. Some people have other interfaces. But to keep the video down to a very minimum, for example, I saw a video recently where there was like the 5 best preamps. And there's been some people where they'll say they didn't have any other preamps other than one other preamps I own was in their list. And I'll use an example. My Avalon right here was not in that list, even though everyone knows that's a very iconic preamp channel strip. Another one is this, right here. This Universal Audio 610. Very, very good preamp. But it wasn't in the top 5 of these, of this video. Which sums it down to, reason why I'm making a point of this video is this. for the most part, am I going to say just because if a certain person makes a video of what they think is the 5 best preamps for recording or whatever, or the 5 best preamps to own, or the 5 best preamps to buy or whatever, and my preamps, like my Avalon or my 610 over here, just name of a few that I own, is not on the list, does that make them bad preamps? Or substandard because they're not on someone else's top 5? Not even in the ballpark of being accurate. So what happened is you'll see there is a reason why you'll see a list of preamps, and 90% of the time, if they think it's the 5 best or whatever, it's because they're being sponsored to advertise that company's piece of gear. It's a it's a hidden agenda behind that. As long as I sit there, and if I sit there and I can take my 5 whatever, and make a video saying these are the best MIDI controllers. I can sit there and use my Arturia Keylab or my M Control 49 or this Behringer 40 and make the top 5. Why would I do that unless I'm being paid or there's some sort of incentive to do that? So if you see that pops up, let's say you'll see a video where it'll say the top 5 MIDI controllers to own for 2024 is Arturia Keylab or the MPC MIDI controller or whatever. And let's say you have a Novation or an M-Audio Oxygen 49 or whatever. Let's say whatever you got. But you're using it, it's working, it controls your DAW or whatever. It controls all your MIDI instruments perfectly fine. Being that it's not on the list doesn't make it bad, not even close. It works so I want to make this video that I know how vocals come out. People know, for example, if you sing videos, you'll hardly ever see a video where I think Sweetwater's the only one that did a video where they actually had my Avalon 737 channel strip preamp in it as one of the top 10 best preamps to own, like the top of the line. Sweetwater did one a few years ago. But a lot of companies, and I'll say this, I'll use one more example and I'll say it like this. If there is a BAE 1073 preamp, one of the best preamps to own, in a top list of preamps to own, yet there's actual Neve 1073 preamp, which the BAE 1073 is a clone of. It's not even an authentic Neve. It's a clone. How can an authentic clone be the best, better than what it's cloning, when it's cloning another name? There is a big, this is why this is what irks me, and probably my biggest pet peeve is when people want to start dogging Behringer as being this clone company, yet Warm Audio, Heritage Audio, Ventec Audio, BAE, and all these other are cloning Neve. And they're not even hiding it. They're blatantly cloning it, even down to the button style. It's got to be the biggest hypocrisy on the earth. Yeah, people are out there dogging Behringer for being a clone company. As if all these, but you know, it's like I'm a dog Behringer as a company, but I'm not going to knock Heritage Audio or Ventec or BAE for cloning Neve. People want to do that when I overemphasize the way why do I do that? I'm just passionate. But in the end, let's sum up the video. So, in the end, when I made the video, when I was talking about which gear to buy in your studio, whatever, I said, just pick something. Because in the end, you're really, really, really comparing apples to apples. And sometimes it's very subtle when it comes to gear. There was a video, and I'll use one more test. And I'll use Andrew Masters because he's got a video. He does a lot of epic home studio tours and all that. He did a test between 4 preamps, including the one preamp on his console, and then 3 other ones. You know, one in the interface. I think he used a couple of outboard gear, and they would do a ear comparison. Yeah, there are going to be differences in the way they sound. But when you're sitting there and you're listening to it, and here's the thing. My thoughts on that. Whenever people do comparison tests, and you have to really, really, really listen. You have to be like, if they'll play something, it doesn't matter what DAW they could be in Pro Tools or whatever, Reaper or whatever. And they do this comparison test, and they'll have 4 preamps, and they're listening to it, and they'll play the audio to let you hear the differences. But when you're listening, and you have to understand this, there's a reason why I'm a little different on this, and I know this for a fact. When you're listening to an audible comparison video of gear, and you have to be like, I'm hearing, it's, if you're listening to, and it's so subtle in the changes, it's kind of like, and sometimes they'll play and they'll have to justify, say, yeah, I know the differences is subtle, but it makes a difference. Well, that is a fallacy. If the changes are so subtle that you have to say it's subtle because you really couldn't hear a distinctive difference. I've seen this where they did comparison with like UA 1176 is a plug-in, 1176 a Clark Technic, 1176 a Warm Audio, 1176 and so forth in compressors. And the difference were so subtle, you were like, yeah, it's subtle, but it'll make a difference. Unless we're talking about harmonics or whatever, when everything's mixed together, if you got 1176 on a set of drums, blended in a mix, you're not going to hear that 1176 distinctively stand out between everything else being played in the mix, including the hi-hat, the drums, the toms being played at certain points, the bass guitar, keys, vocals, guitar, everything else, all in that mix. Synthesizer sounds, vocals, you're not going to hear 1176 distinctly reacting at a 4-to-1 ratio attack at a fast attack time, and really in a mix. You're not. It's going to be, the drums, and a lot of times it's other factors to make the drums stand out, like EQ and how it's mic'd, if it's a real drum set or if it's a synthesized sample sound or whatever, how it stands out, and the volume level brought, how loud it is in the mix, and what was done at the recording, and then what's done at the mixing portion, and what's done at the mastering portion, and everything in between. What kind of preamps it went through, what kind of converters it went through, what kind of EQ they're using. Did they use a fat filter EQ plug-in, or did they use one on a console? Yeah, I mean, a whole factors to that to determine if you can even hear a Clark Technic 1176 or a UA 1176 on a set of drums. And especially if it's a snare drum or whatever. Because there are other factors making you hear that snare drum, like the fader volume, the EQing of the drum, the microphone that was used, the distance for the microphone to the snare and where it was placed. So, to end the video, a lot of the differences in gear are subtle. They're not drastically. Yeah, if you were doing a comparison video and it was blatantly obvious, like someone played a piece of gear, and they played another piece of gear, you're like, oh yeah, that's blatant. But if you had to sit there and listen to a comparison video, and then they change, and it's like so minutely, slightly different. It's like very. They'll play two. It could be two preamps or two compressors or two EQs or whatever. And they can be matched, and they'll play one and play the other back to back, and you're like, and then when it goes from one another, you're like, sometimes you don't even notice that change without you like, and they might even put some writing. This is the Need 1073, then this is the BAE 73, and you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna play the two differences and let you hear the different colors of the preamp, and you're like. The knee sounds just a little bit warmer. You could barely tell. And the friends, people that watch my video, if that's the total, if that's the difference, when it comes to paying $3,000 for the Neve, or $2,000 for the BAE, or $500 for the Warm Audio clone. Or whatever the case may be. Buy the $500 if you don't want to just own it for the purposes of saying, okay, I have the Neve. I'd rather have the Neve because I know Neve. I'd rather just own the Neve. But if you want to buy it because you're looking for something like a 73 preamp and the Warm Audio sounds like we're talking less than 2% in difference. People, you're not going to hear that in the mix. You're not going to hear that in the record. You're not going to hear when it's mastered. You're not going to hear that difference. There are so many records made that you don't know what studio it came out of without reading the credits. That's how close, when you're dealing with experienced recording and mixing and mastering engineers in these recording studios, or even if it's done at home. Like I said, I just got finished we're making tweaks. Didn't get a chance to put it out this year. I mean, for Christmas for this year, but it's definitely coming out next year. And I'm talking about the Christmas album I was working with this artist. We're tweaking little things here and there, but it will definitely come out next year. When you listen to it, and people that know and watch my video will know it came out of my studio. But if you listen to it, you would not know it came out of my studio. It would sound just like it came out of any other commercial studio. That's how the differences is, and that's how minute the differences is. It's kind of like if you listen to even if you go old school. Yeah, producers, engineers, and all that. You really have to train ear to hear an API console versus an MCI console or a SSL. I mean, you have to be around all that gear 24/7 to really learn the sound of it. Like, it took me a long time to hear the difference between my Allen Heath and my Behringer downstairs, but I can hear the difference between the two. But if I do something on both, they're not going to be drastically different because there's a lot of other factors running through those consoles to give the sound of the recording. So, to sum up the video, yes, going on 20 minutes. To sum up the video, if you bought gear and you saw the best list or whatever, and your gear's not on it, I promise you, there's nothing wrong with your gear unless something's actually physically, or mechanically, or electronically wrong with your piece of gear. There's nothing wrong with your gear, or just blatantly is just a really, really bad, cheap piece of gear. But other than that, for the most part, like reason if you'll see these videos with these lists like that, there's a reason being for that. They're being sponsored, including if Sweetwater, it's, you know, Mitch Gallagher does I want to talk about 5 mixers for 2024, great digital mixers. I want to talk about the Behringer X32, or I want to talk about the Personas, you know, Live, or I want to talk about the Yamaha TF5, or I want to talk about the Midas M32, or I want to talk about the Allen and Heath QU16 or whatever. Any of these names, when they talk about digital mixers, they're being sponsored, paid by the company to do. These are all behind the scenes when they you know, when these companies, the shareholders, people have stock and investment in the gear and all that. When they sit there and say, okay, let's pay Sweetwater or Musician's Friend or even YouTubers to talk about some gear, you know, maybe they might give Sweetwater as a music instrument company, they might get incentive where the markup, the market and profits margins might be a little bit better for Sweetwater if they advertise the gear, when they're selling the gear. We're going to give you, instead of 15% of the profit, we'll give you 20% of the profits if you talk about our gear. These are in behind the scenes meetings. This is how marketing works for all retails. This is why when you walk into a grocery store or whatever, you see certain advertisements or certain placements on shelves or locations of product for you to visually. It's all psychological marketing to get people to buy product. It's the basis of how capitalism works in the first place. So that's going to sum up the video, and I just wanted to talk about that because I know, like I said, I made this long video. I just want to talk about that, about gear, and that's why I'm so behind when it comes to buying gear for your studio. For the most part, just choose something that you think will work for you. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great one.